I've been busy watching stupid videos. Wow. Looks like we're getting hit hard, or at least we were getting hit hard. So, I'm watching this video today, and it says something like, I was walking through Chicago doing one of those underground expose type, where someone finds, an underground base, an underground, I don't know what else you call it, a base, a factory, a facility of some sort. And, there are, it's actually pretty long. That's what she said. It's like a 20-minute video. You usually don't see that. But it was, it's like all those videos that exist, and there's fucking plenty of them. All the videos that exist of regular people discovering places like this and then walking through them. Oh. You could, like, I'd love to hear from the people that believe everything they're told. Oh, the big, beautiful bill passed and shit like that. I love to hear from those people because I would love to know what you believe. In that video, you are clearly seeing some sort of facility that is deep underground. Now, again, I don't know if it's Chicago or if it's Russia or whatever. The poster is clearly Russian. The words that they use are all Russian. But there are many different points throughout the video where they show like the walls, and on the walls have a name and a date. And you're seeing dates in 40s, 30s, 20s. And there's lots of it that's these long hallways that are brick on either side, and they have a rounded roof. But I just want to know what other people think that shit is. If you aren't comfortable saying, there's a clear disconnect between what we're told and what actually exists, then what do you call that? To me, it's so fascinating to look at stuff like that and think, okay, so how'd they build it? Whoever it was that built it, how did they do it? What technology did they have available to them back in the 20s that facilitated the ability to dig big, giant fucking tunnels? We don't really talk too much about our subway systems and just all of the underground existence, I guess you could say. Like all the different things that exist underground. Here in Detroit, it's sort of well known everywhere there's an underground city. The ground would find there's cities. They'll talk about how, there was a big salt mine that was underneath Detroit. Sure, okay. Well, how did they do it? How did they excavate that salt? How did they? I mean, it's and this is everywhere. This is so many different things where you can go, how did they do that? What tech was available? And I think because it's 2025 and we're all so complacent and there's so much distraction going on, and stuff like this is the one time you're allowed to be made fun of. We live in this super PC world where you have to respect everyone's everything at all times, and the few ways that like if you don't believe in Jesus, you're allowed to be attacked. If you don't believe the earth is round, you're allowed to be attacked. If you question anything J-ish or Israeli, whatever, you're allowed to be attacked. But the underground thing is so fascinating because it's like undeniable. It clearly exists. There's clearly a lot more going on beneath the surface, and yet it's not a very common conversation. You're distracted by the bread and circus, as you're supposed to be. Let's see, I wonder how many channels they made today. This one was made 44 seconds ago. 44 seconds ago. Somehow they knew I was live, even though their pages have been blocked. Interesting. And this kind of shit, like, this does nothing but help me. The more they obsess over me and prove my point, the more validity I have. Keep making the fake profiles. I mean, that shit just adds to it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort. If I wasn't kicking the shit out of stuff, if I wasn't, breaking all of the rules, there wouldn't be this wouldn't be necessary. This wouldn't be happening. And you, the viewer, you have to answer that question, If I'm wrong, then what's with the obsession? Why would they obsess over me so much? It's just fascinating, It goes into all these same categories where it doesn't make sense the way we're told. So let's we've tried to answer it. So what else is it? I mean, do people really think it's just regular people that obsessed with me? Like, it's a strange thing. The loyalty that my fans have is unrivaled, man. I don't know anybody that can consistently block people and still have a huge view count. Who blocks their viewers? And then who is the type of person that keeps making new accounts? If you really want to talk about submarines, go watch Submarines Aren't Real Part 1 through 9. That's all I can tell you on that one. Not going to waste time talking about it today because you might be new or just fucking around. But really, if you really are interested, there's a really well-made, significant debunk of the narrative, and it's available, and it's there for you to question it. Watch what did you tell me to watch? What? Hollywoodism. That's the only thing I ever tell people to watch. Hollywoodism. the most important film ever made. It's the most important piece of film ever made. And that's saying a lot, considering, you know, all of the oldest footage that exists, actual movie footage and camera footage, shows a world that doesn't match the narrative we're given. So look, told you. You see it right there? Coming across. I don't know if you guys can see it as well because it blends in pretty good. You can see it. I'm sure we're gonna get one from here. We didn't get it last time I said so, but we'll get one from right here in a minute too. Watch suspicious observer cataclysm timeline for the truth. How do you know it's the truth though? Like, what do you base that on? Who made it? Who are the people behind suspicious observer? You know, I'm a real big fan of the Mind Unveiled videos, right? I think that channel is really, really good. But I just can't help but ask who's behind it, right? Have you seen inside the sprayer planes? No. Ew, you admitted to being a gross J. Ew. And of course you love dead shit. That makes sense. I'm sure you're a big necrophiliac because, you know, necro shit is a big thing in your cult, right? So, thanks for the acknowledgement. They remove all passengers and fill them with big pressurized tanks. Yeah. But that's the stuff that is allowed to leak. You know, we really don't know. You know, I think the majority of the planes that we see are, whoa, that's hateful and racist. Very, very hateful. I hate them very much. They aren't a race. So it's not racist. Educate yourself. Get your mind right. We're not talking about a race of people. We're talking about a choice. An identity. And it's disgusting. It's a fucking disgusting cult. And that's the weird thing. Like, if it wasn't this specific thing that you were told you're not even allowed to talk about, right? Then you would see it for what it is. Like, you would look at their rituals and their practices and their beliefs and absolutely call it the cult that it is. We got a Hitler here. Smokes meth and everything. This guy legit. Smokes meth and everything. This guy legit. Gotcha. I mean, it's weird to me how people can be like so brainwashed, right? That instead of being able to hear my arguments and hear the presentation and then picking it apart like a normal person would, you just go, nah, 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 nah. Like, it's really weird. Cataclysm timeline is the mother of all conspiracies. This is the motivation behind all the smoke screens. Maybe. May you come to know Jesus. Yeah, go fuck your stupid Jesus. That's talk about your biggest conspiracies. The whole idea of the J superhero who's gonna fix all our problems for us if we just pray enough to get him back. It's fucking stupid. Who's washing all these brains? Like the Jays. I mean, this is so weird. Like, they think it's some sort of, like, this is how dumb they are. Are they trying to slight me by saying I'm a Jew? Like, that's weird. If I could say I was, believe me, I would. You know, it would have so much more impact if I was a disgusting cult member and I was smart enough to leave. I was good enough to leave. So this idea, like this, I mean, I get that this is the best you can come up with. I get it. I don't, especially those who identify as a cult member, a J cult member. I don't expect very much from you. But this whole argument that I'm a self-hating J, you know, I wish I could say that. If I could say I'm a J, that would validate a lot more of what I'm saying. You know, but again, you're calling me you as some sort of slight. What led you to these conclusions? Nobody said you were a Jew. He makes up comments and replies to him. This is my favorite self-hating Jew. He always showed up late for Hebrew school. Yep, I made that up. There, Benji even checked you there, Nathan. Do you like Trump? No. Why would I? Right? Why? I'm not a racist white guy who's sexist and homophobic. Why would I like Trump? What has Trump done other than what he's told and put us in a war? I mean, it's pretty fucking crazy. He's a Jew, it's true. We used to go to Hebrew school in Montreal. So now I'm Canadian too? That's interesting. And it's funny, like, this is the shit that you guys do. You guys literally make up your own narrative because there is no real argument here. Right? It's just insane how stupid people are. You know, this big beautiful bill is what Elon, what pushed Elon to out Donald Trump. He outed him. Like the idea that Elon would just say it. I'm just going to say probably the most controversial thing I could say. You know, it's not like Elon doesn't have enough press, doesn't have enough money, doesn't have enough attention. And anything he does, he could get attention for. So why would he lie? And when you pay attention, you realize, like, Elon outs Trump, and then a week and a half later, we're bombing Iran. And now nobody's talking about it? Now we have the big, beautiful bill. Nobody's talking about it. Why isn't there, like, so if Elon Musk says Trump is on the Epstein list, that's why it hasn't been released. Why doesn't that bring on an investigation? And this is one of those things where, again, you would think if you're innocent, you would absolutely encourage an investigation to prove you innocent. I know unveiled films. I love when people say stuff like that, like, you believe in Tartaria. Well, Tartaria existed. There's not a question of whether or not it existed. The question then becomes, what's the importance, you know, how powerful, what, you know, what's being covered up, and why in my history classes was I never taught about Tartaria? With as significant as it was for such a long period of time, you would think we would have been at least told about it. But the whole thing with Trump and all of it, it's all like, I really don't understand how people still believe what they're supposed to believe. When you see, like, when you see all of this bullshit that's being put forth, happy 250th year, that's next year. Next year. I was asking my wife last night, are they going to make a big deal out of it? Hawk. Are they going to do a whole 200, like they did a big deal with the 200, in 1976, the bicentennial. So are they going to make a big deal out of it next year? Why can Trump commit high treason and I can't even smoke pot? Well, I don't know where you can't smoke pot. It's pretty much legal, isn't it? They're releasing the Epstein footage. I can't wait to see an edited real footage. They would never lie about something like that, would they? Right. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, anything that's released, Epstein list, Epstein money, or Epstein film, whatever, understand, dude's been dead for like 6 years. You know? They've been more than able to manufacture whatever sort of narrative they want to manufacture at this point. And yet somehow, it's still so obvious what was going on that they can't. Not in the Bible Belt. Huh. That's strange. But yeah, I mean, it's a great analogy, or it's a great point. Why can Trump do all of it? Again, he's on the Epstein list. There is no doubt about the connection with Epstein and Trump. Like, it's not even a questionable argument thing. Like, you a real life Nazi? No way. Yeah, really? Nazi, huh? Save Israel. They're good people. That's the best you could come up with. Oh, I love the stupidity. They're good people. You know, the people that rape children, the people that are in the process of genociding an entire population, starving people to death, but the people that rape their own children, those are good people. Gotcha. So if Tartaria existed, if Tartaria existed, then why did the native cultures document it? Their historical, THERE, historical accounts have no motivations to hide it. What? What kind of stupid shit is this? If Tartaria has been hidden, and again, it's not a question of whether it existed or not. Just like how Palestine is on all sorts of maps, and it's well documented that it existed, Tartaria is too. There are plenty of maps that show Tartaria. So when I mean, really at the end of the day, there's like two sides to this coin, right? And there is no real in between. You're either smart enough to see that a whole bunch of technology had to have existed at a time when, you know, we're on horses and buggies according to the narrative. Or you just don't. Like, you know, you accept the idea that when they say, well, how did they build all those giant churches and castles on the sides of cliffs and, you know, all these star forts? Star forts? I mean, it's just, go look up Old London Bridge. You look up Old London Bridge and you tell me how, you know, the podunk people with no tech built it. I mean, that's the thing, is like, you're either dumb enough to accept we don't know, and, you know, that's just it. How did they do it? We don't know. The pyramids are just another example, but, you know, Agartha exists, Admiral Byrd saw it. Yeah, you believe Admiral Byrd, huh? You believe a military man who was a top-ranking Freemason who was allowed to go on TV and talk about it. You think that's who's telling you the truth? I mean, it's really just fucking stupid. And at the end of the day, it's all a distraction. Like, I think Tartaria ends up being the biggest distraction there is. One of the best distractions there is. Because it's so obviously true. You know, and there's just, every time you look into anything Tartaria, you're validated. You know, you look up the history of whatever giant skyscraper exists in your main, in your downtown of the state that you're in. And you know, the oldest, biggest skyscraper, and you'll find 100-story buildings and that are ornate all the way up to the top. And like the Empire State Building was built in 1 year, 400 days. In 1920 or 31. It's like, look at the cars from back then. And this is after we have power tools and shit like that. But there's plenty of it that was built prior to, in the 1800s and shit. And again, every time you look into any of it, you get the, you know, you get the validation that what you're doing is right, and that you're being lied to. You find the Great Fire story, you find You know, no construction photos, no construction details. Just real plain, simple nothing. And this is a time when, you know, we've been able to take photos since the 1840s at least. And you understand that, like, everything you look at will validate it and just drag you down further and further into the rabbit hole. And it's kind of a never-ending rabbit hole. But the reality is, if you're not talking about the genocide taking place right now, you're being distracted. Yep, we have another person calling me schizo because they're too stupid to know what else to say. So it's a schizophrenia. It's me talking. It's my fractured personalities and me talking to people that don't exist and thinking people out in the bush and shit. Yep, I'm a schizo. Was Admiral Byrd a bad guy? Yeah, he was in the crew. He was another actor that they've given us. And it's like, you know, you have to put down your arrogance at the end of the day. And I know people are, you're gonna say arrogant. You look at you. No, I have a very, very strong ego. I'm very confident in myself when it comes to this particular thing. I don't think I can beat everyone in basketball. I don't think I'm the best accountant in the world, or, you know, a chef, or, you know, I don't think I can just do everything better than anybody. But when it comes to this particular thing, you know, I know what I do, and I see the resistance that comes my way. And it's kind of hard not to think I'm the best when you see how difficult the other side finds it to actually even engage. You know, they don't even try to engage because they can't. The genocide is the short game, you fool. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, well, when it comes to the short game regarding this, that's okay. I'm gonna focus on it. And like I say, you have to put down your arrogance, because so many of you are arrogant enough to think that you personally can decipher which things are true and which things aren't. It's amazing, you know. You believe this, or you believe that, or, you know. But then you question other things. Like, it's just funny to me how people do that. You know, and that's the reality is, everybody just goes with what they like. It really does come down to that. You believe what you want to believe, what you like believing. You know, there's not a Christian on earth that can provide you with any piece of evidence to validate why they believe what they believe. Not a single one. Just like there's not a single gay out there that can do it. Any of the 3 Abrahamic religions. You know, it's just bullshit. Have 0 documents to back up. Yep, I never provide any evidence for what I'm saying. And you see how, like, this is the cowardly action that they do. They pick and choose which pieces they're going to respond to in whatever way, but there's nothing said. You know? All you Christians out there, provide me something. If he had documents, you still wouldn't believe him. Well, I have had documents. I've shown you guys tons and tons of stuff. Nah, you just use Wikipedia, says some dumbass. So I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I'm just crazy for using Wikipedia. And believe me, I don't think everything in Wikipedia is true. That's not the point. And this is where I think a lot of people are, like, stupid. They believe what they want to believe. They hear what they want to hear. You know, this idea of, I'm using Wikipedia. Well, why do I use Wikipedia? I use Wikipedia because it's the source they want us to have. It's the information they want us to know. And here's the Here's one of those proofs that you'll deny.
Moetzet Yesha, in conjunction with My Israel, has arranged Instruction Day for wiki editors. The goal of the day is to teach people how to edit in Wikipedia, which is the number one source of information today in the world. As a way of example, if someone searches the Gaza flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature.
Okay, so that that male is at this point he's a former Israeli prime minister. But when this was recorded in 2010, he was a future Israeli prime minister. And during the big shit show they gave us between 2019 and 2022, where Israel had Netanyahu as the prime minister, then Benny Gantz was the prime minister, and then Netanyahu was the prime minister, and then this guy, Naftali Bennett, was the prime minister, and then Naftali Bennett just stepped down somehow. Like he, I think that's just fascinating to think that a president or a prime minister can just step down, just out of the blue one day, just step down. And when he did, Yair Lapid, a talking head and an Israeli operative to the core who's been paraded in front of us forever. I mean, he was in the Where in the World is Osama bin Laden movie that Morgan Spurlock made, right? But he and then after Yair Lapid, in November of 22, they put Netanyahu back in charge, and this time they put him in charge in a way that he's essentially a dictator. Like, he can't be removed. There's no more elections. There's none of that that's going to happen until he dies. He's going to oh, look, here we go. We have yet another profile joined 2 minutes ago with no subscribers. Do anybody think that's weird? Does anybody think that's fucking weird? You know, how do you not think it's weird that you know, so here we have the fish guy, joined 2 years ago, has 1 subscriber. Does that sound like a reasonable thing? Does that sound like how things work? Who is going to continue to make fake profiles to watch somebody that calls them pedophiles and blocks them? I mean, just make it make sense. So then, do you doubt the Barcoda revolt? Your history has to be motivated by events. So what's the history of Palestine? Also, where does the word come from? Who are you to decide what the rules are? I mean, saying that the history has to be guided by events, do you not know the real famous quote that the winners write the history? I mean, it's just presented to you. What proof do you have of any of it? And regardless of what you want to call Palestine, because this is one of their new tricks, is to get you to go in these circular arguments where you're arguing, just dumb shit, right? Where you are, like Charlie Kirk is saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Palestine doesn't exist. It's called Judea and Samaria. Like, these are dumb arguments. What you decide to call something really doesn't matter. That's not the argument. The argument is that there's a genocide taking place. That one group that deems themselves superior by birth is killing another group of people out in the open with no consequence, right? Let's make it 4, shall we? Oh, look, the News Brews joined This 24 minutes ago and has no subscribers. Does that make sense to you guys? What is trauma? The definition. Are you talking about the Chinese ethnic genocides? No. The Bolsheviks, do you know of it? Yes. Yeah, it's that part of history that's completely hidden. While we're told Hitler is the worst guy to ever exist, at the exact same time, actually a little bit earlier, but at the same time, you have Stalin and the Bolshevik Jews, they were Jewish, who killed as many as 60 million people, Christians. The gulags and all that shit, at least according to the narrative. I think, again, a lot of these stories are just sort of given to us. 60 million people is so many fucking people. Like, people, like, you were shooting people individually. It would take you forever to shoot 60 million people. It would take you such a long time and so much effort to kill 60 million people. Just like it would take you a ton of time and effort to kill 6 million people and then burn all the bodies. And they'd still be doing it. Especially with that antiquated technology. Do you denounce the ethnic cleansing going on in China right now? Well, yeah. If there's an ethnic cleansing going on, for sure it's a bad thing. And obviously, like, this is one of those parts that people forget. In 2019, before they shut us down with COVID, everybody in the world was protesting but the United States. And one of those protests was in Hong Kong. And the people were gathering together during allowed time, of course, and doing things like brutally singing the national anthem and just begging for the United States intervention because it was, it's such a prison state. And this was literally happening all over the world, but China was absolutely involved, and the people were protesting until they shut it down. But you could talk about all the other bad things that are happening in the world. In Africa, what's being done to Africans and what's been done to Africans the whole time is just appalling. It's really just horrendous how bad it really is. And it's just avoided, it's ignored. But the difference is, this thing that's happening right now with the Palestinians, this is being broadcast and bragged about on TV, unlike any other thing before it. That's what sort of separates it. They're making us all complicit in it. And we know, we have ideas that this or that is happening. China, Africa, whatever. We know without a shadow of a doubt what's going on with the Palestinians. And this just flat out genocide that's being bragged about on TV. That's a whole different thing. That affects you on the inside. That affects people. I would imagine as this organism that is humanity that lives on this thing that we're in, whatever it is, on some level we're all connected. And that's what taking lots of acid will show you. But if that's the truth and we are all connected, then the genocide of people, all that death, all those children being beheaded and raped and all these things, like, that affects us. That has to affect us on some level. When that came to be was another issue. Again, all this stuff that anything over 100 years old is hearsay. And truly, everything outside of your own scope, outside of what you can see, you can experience yourself, is hearsay. You're being told. No matter what it is, you're being told. And so many of you don't think that large numbers of people, like extras. It's like you've never heard of extras. You know? There are large numbers of people that are involved in all sorts of things. And it can be a manipulation all day long. So when you start talking about what's happening, what you know, the Federal Reserve, and sure, there's a documented history. And the funny thing is, it's just like with everything Israeli, everything Jewish. It's the history that they give us is the best spin they can put on whatever it is. And even though they're obfuscating and manipulating and you know, putting the agreed upon narrative forward, it still paints them as just horrible psychopaths. Right? It's really, you know, it's shocking to think that, like, if you go to Wikipedia and you read about AIPAC, well, the one thing you have to take notice of is that the AIPAC page is completely blocked. It's all locked. You can't edit it whatsoever. So all the people that foolishly think, well, anybody can just edit Wikipedia. First of all, you can't. But second of all, like, this page in particular is locked. So it's only the information that they want you to know they want you to know. Like, there are stories where you think you can edit it, and all that does is your edit triggers the editors to check out what your edit is, and if your edit fits the narrative, then they keep it. If it doesn't, well, then they get rid of it. Your YOUR just black-pilled, which is fine, but you still got to do research. Your YOUR clueless about history. Well, we should definitely listen to you because you're clearly super smart. The Middle East, personally, the Middle East don't see it as a USA issue, but sadly, due to my job, it is my issue. Well, I love those white Americans who say shit like that, right? We should just let them fight, that's their issue. Well, that would be the case, other than the fact that the US has given one side of this trillions of dollars, you know, just in cash alone, the amount of weapons and military equipment and planes and vehicles, all this shit that we've given them is, I'm sure it's incalculable. You know, I'm sure it would be a hard thing to even figure out, but no, we can't just be like, okay, figure this out, because we've armed one side. You know, I mean, it's really another stupid distraction that is pretty prominent, actually. But this is, you know, and this is, you see this is, you know, somebody is crying because I don't believe the same thing they do. So I must not know about it. I'm literally sitting here like quoting stuff and talking about the whole thing. But because you believe the narrative, I don't know it. It's just stupid. It's stupid. This is why I use Wikipedia to begin with. Because if you say, oh, I found this on some alternative page, well, then normally people will cry about it. Oh, you just got that from Alex Jones and other stupid shit. But it's crazy to think how, like, people do this with the Wikipedia thing too. And I don't know if it's, I mean, first of all, a lot of it is just bot bullshit. Avatars, actually, not bots, avatars. But it's a choice, right? It's just you have no evidence to believe what you do. You just choose to because you like it. And a lot of it has to do with you being a racist white guy, sexist, homophobic, all these things. And then a lot of it has to do with you just being stupid. But to pretend like Wikipedia isn't a valid source of information. So if not Wikipedia, then what source do you suggest? Wikipedia being the encyclopedia of modern times and number one source of information, to the point where Naftali Bennett flat out admits that Israel controls it because they want to be able to influence what people think, so that your perspective is a pro-Zionist one. Like, I really don't know, as far as evidence goes, I don't really know what else to provide you. You know? I mean, when you're looking at these comments, remember, we'll quickly do this again. Good thing this is only 37 seconds long.
Israel.
Pay attention.
Moetzet Yesh, in conjunction with My Israel, has arranged Instruction Day for wiki editors. The goal of the day is to teach people how to edit in Wikipedia, which is the number one source of information today in the world. As a way of example, if someone searches the Gaza flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature.
I came here to learn more.
That being at this point, this is 2010, he's a future prime minister. Today, he's a previous prime minister. But you have a very high-ranking individual who at the time was just a very high-ranking Israeli operative, acknowledging that they control, oh, it looks AI. Yeah, that's what it is. See, look at this desperation, right? So instead of acknowledging what's being said, so somehow this AI of this random guy that most of you don't know about is just put out there because, you know, they're trying to trick people. Like, this is how stupid you are? Like was said earlier, it doesn't matter what evidence is provided to you. And that's the difference between you and I, is I literally provide you with evidence for what I'm saying. So when you see that Naftali Bennett acknowledges that Israel controls Wikipedia, well, understand, again, I don't believe Wikipedia to be 100% true, but it is the narrative that they want us to have. It's the truth that they want us to believe. So, you know, I'm going to go with what it says. Now, keep that in mind when we look up team. And I spent a lot of time yesterday looking up actual articles, which go more in depth about it. But I'm going to look up the Wikipedia summary of Team Jorge. So I don't show my sources, right? But this is Team Jorge. Team Jorge is the name given to an outfit of Israeli contractors specialized in the use of malign cyber activities, including hacking, sabotage, and bot farm-run social media disinformation campaigns to manipulate the outcomes of elections. And I know people like to get stuck on certain words or aspects, and they'll be like, oh, it's not for you, it's for manipulating elections. Right. If they can manipulate elections, I can probably manipulate YouTube pages. One of the organization's primary tools is a software package called AIMS. The group was exposed in February 2023, after an award-winning undercover operation by journalists from Israel and France as part of a consortium of investigative journalists coordinated by Forbidden Stories. Journalists from all over, the US being one of them. The organization has been active since at least 2015 now. Again, the documented history goes back to just before the Trump election, where, you know, he lost, and then the AIPAC swamp that he said he was going to drain put him in office anyway. He lost by 2.7 million votes. They want to make it sound like it's just 2.7 million. 2.7 million people is a lot of fucking people. But they put him in anyway, and he never drained any swamp. He didn't do anything like that. At least 2015, and boasts of having manipulated that lucky number 33 presidential elections worldwide. Don't worry, white people. Many of them are in Africa, it says. Many, meaning 4 or more. And in 27 cases with successful results. Their activities were revealed following a 2022 sting operation in Tel Aviv carried out by 3 undercover journalists who posed as prospective clients and filmed their interactions with Tal Hanan, the group's leader and former Israeli Special Forces operative. According to Hanan, Team Jorge has existed for more than 2 decades and has been engaged in propaganda and disinformation activities in more than 30 countries. Their services have been available to government intelligence agencies, political campaigns, and private companies that wish to covertly manipulate public opinion. Now, here's the good part, right? One of the organization's primary tools is a software package called AIMS, Advanced Impact Media Solutions. The software automates centralized control of thousands of fake social media profiles on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Telegram, TikTok, YouTube, and others. Blah, 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 blah. They brute force and blah, that's the rest. But so you have their number one system for disseminating information, right? This is what they want us to know. And what they want us to know is that just one Israeli Black Ops organization was exposed. And just that one operation had 30,000 bots. They could create social media networks with 30,000 bots to attack, to upvote, to bolster someone or attack someone. And they had this at their disposal. And when you look into the actual articles, they say it's not even bots isn't an accurate word. It's more like avatars. These profiles exist across multiple platforms. They have a history, and the software itself is much more advanced than anything else anybody's ever seen. These high-ranking official, these people that expose this and have their best technology people looking into it had never seen anything like it. So you have this one, again, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Israeli Black Ops organizations doing this exact same thing. But you have just one that was exposed as having 30,000 at their disposal at any time. And you can find all sorts of articles with Zuckerberg talking about how Facebook is super proud of itself because they've put in a lot of effort to get rid of those troll farms, to get rid of bot farms. They got rid of 1,000 profiles out of China, 800 out of the Philippines. And yet you'll never see any interviews where they talk about getting rid of bot profiles, bot farms out of Israel. And it's like, I just keep repeating this because it's so fascinating, it's so damning, it's so telling when you understand, like, Israel, this one group brags about 30,000 accounts. And Zuckerberg doesn't say anything about any of it? Like, it's really fascinating. But that's the one side. That's the automated side. And then on a more personal side, you have something called act.il, right? And act.il was a social networking service used by supporters of Israel to oppose online anti-Israel content such as the BDS movement, boycott, divestments, and sanctions. Its activities were referred to as an online propaganda campaign and a virtual situation room for pro-Israeli experts. Now pay attention again. ACT-IL directed its users to, quote, missions to like, comment on, and share pro-Israel material on social media. It also asked users to flag, report, and respond to criticisms of Israel. Users were guided on how to respond, which might entail writing a reply using the provided talking points, or sharing or upvoting an allied comment. The app also provided users with ready-made memes promoting Israel's perspective for them to share. Now pay attention again. By completing missions, users earned points, unlocked badges, and had their scores displayed on leaderboards. So now you have an incentive program for Israelis or pro-Israel supporters to search out and find people like me so they can get rewarded for it. Like, again, as far as proof goes, I really don't know what else to give you. Hey, what's happening? What?
Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero. That's my favorite guy. Right on.
Yep.
We'll have to try these out. Thank you. Appreciate you. I definitely will. I don't know how you knew I would enjoy this.
I asked your wife to do cigarettes you smoking. She said, come on. I said, I don't smoke what? I smoke joints. I'm almost 60. So
Yeah, right.
I smoke joints.
Yeah.
But everybody
You're almost 60. You look great.
thank you.
Yeah. Must be the weed.
Might be.
Have a great day. Proof of what? What's the conclusion? Proof that we're being manipulated by Israel, openly, obviously, aggressively manipulated by Israel, who controls every aspect of everything. Like, you really need your hand held for all of this? To what end? To what end? To maintain their perspective, to maintain their good life. Understand that if the people actually knew what this cult represented, if everybody knew about Matitza Bapé, they wouldn't accommodate it. If you start telling people about Matitza Bapé, METZITZIA B apostrophe PEH. If the average person knew about that, they would go, fuck that, that's disgusting. No way. That shouldn't be allowed. And literally, that's just one piece. But considering, the Israelis don't work, they get free healthcare, free education, free housing, free life that we pay for, and not just us. I mean, the U.S. gives them $3.8 billion a year. Canada gives $2 billion a year. Australia gives $1.2 billion a year. And then all sorts of other countries steal their people's tax dollars and funnel them into Israel. The $3.8 billion a year that we give them, once it transfers over to shekels, becomes 15 billion shekels. Their dollars are called shekels. We just funnel money into them. What do you think about Bob Dylan having his visas revoked? I mean, I don't. What am I supposed to think? It's obvious. I'd never heard of Bob Dylan until this new thing. But yeah, death to the IDF. If they were the good guys and there was, it wasn't all true, then there wouldn't be such resistance to us knowing about it. Canada don't give $2 billion a year. That's just not true. No, it is. And doesn't is what you meant to say. Doesn't give. Yes, they do. Canada gives Israeli university attention more than the University of... And then when you start looking into that, like the $3.8 billion a year, right? Nobody knows anything about that. If I start talking about memorandums of understanding, you would have no idea. They're harassing you. YouTube doesn't monetize, and nope. I love that. The idea I should get a better internet on my phone. How do you get better internet on your phone? I have T-Mobile. I'm in the Metro Detroit area, surrounded by cell phones. It's flat here, you know, or surrounded by cell phone towers, sorry. And I'm using one of, if not the #1 network in the country. So I'm supposed, and I have a phone that's over only a year or two old, if that. So what makes more sense? That for some reason, surrounded by towers in a flat place on a #1 network, my internet just doesn't seem to want to work right because I need to up my internet, or they're fucking with it. And see, this is that part where like these dumbasses, they won't acknowledge the Team Jorge aspect of things. Again, I'm providing you proof. Team Jorge absolutely exists, and that's just like Team Jorge is just 0.5% of what the picture is. This was just something that was either accidentally leaked or it was done on purpose to just sort of drive the point home. But either way, Team Jorge is just one individual. It's not even talking, that's not like the Israeli government does this. No, this is Team Jorge. This is a private company funded by the government. But, you know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other black ops organizations doing the same thing. And when you understand that, like you know how significant all of that is. And their stated purposes are to attack anyone that criticizes Israel. And you see how the narrative is spun. You know, you see this anti-Semitism bullshit thrown around. How many people know what that word even means? Here, I love doing this one. I always have to show you the exact thing, just so there's no questioning, right? So we'll come up here, and we'll click Semitism definition into the Google machine. We'll come down to the Merriam-Webster version. Merriam-Webster, like you can't say Merriam-Webster's not okay. Webster's dictionary is the dictionary. Merriam-Webster definition, Semitism, Merriam-Webster page. Oops, we hit noun.
Semitism.
Okay, there's no funny business.
Semitism.
This is the Semitism page. Semitism, #1A, Semitic character or quality. #1B, a characteristic feature of a Semitic language occurring in another language. Okay, that's reasonable. 2, policy or predisposition favorable to bad guys. Policy or predisposition favorable. So it's flat out, it's telling you that it's supremacy. It's J supremacy. Why would any one group have policy or predisposition favorable to them? And policy is the rules and regulations, the way the world works, the way the country works. You know, the laws and all that shit. And the predisposition, how you go into it thinking. You know, before you know any details of the thing, if you find out that they are involved, well then they're going to get favor no matter what. You don't care about the details, you just give them the favor. That's literally supremacy. I don't know how else you would define supremacy. If everything works to your advantage, then you have supremacy, and it's required. It's a demand, Semitism. Because if you do anything, then you get negatively called anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitic is a different word. Semitic means all of the people of the region. Black, white, brown, doesn't matter. You know, Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, Iranians, Iraqis, North African places like Egypt. You know, these are all Semitic. That region is Semitic. When the Israelis call the Palestinians anti-Semitic, it's like, it just shows you how stupid they are, because a recent study came out that said 95% of Israelis don't have Semitic blood. You know, Milkowskis and whatnot. You know, Netanyahu, every prime minister that's ever been in Israel has changed their name from a European, Russian, American sounding name to the Netanyahus. You know, like they all do it to make themselves sound more Semitic. I don't know, how many of you have multiple names that you've gone by? Did you know that the last name Lopez is very commonly a Durish name that was the wealthy class in Spain, Portugal back in the when that was the most powerful part of Europe? I mean, see, the problem with that though is you're talking about a history that's been given to you. You really don't know how much of that is true. So when we start talking about ancient Spain and all this, and we're talking about a history that doesn't tell us about this extremely technically advanced society. They don't mention Tartaria, and they don't mention all the technology they had to have to exist. I mean, one of the biggest conspiracies that isn't talked about is the underground crypts, all the underground shit. You know, the subway system in New York. Nobody talks about how it got there. There's no evidence of how it got there. There's no evidence of how they drilled through all of this rock and shit underneath the ground, and then we're still able to build huge buildings on top of it, even though they took out all the foundation material. You know, that shit is all just brushed under the rug, and you're not supposed to think about it. That's why when it comes to history, it's like, I love history, but the more I look into everything, the more I'm like, man, it's all just a ruse. History is written by the winners. Semitic comes from the language of origin. You're, Y-O-U-R, overcomplicating it. Look at how desperate you are. I'm overcomplicating it by saying Semitic refers to the region. And then looking up the definition of Semitism is me overcomplicating things. Like, this is how desperately stupid the other side is. I don't even know how to respond to that. You're overcomplicating it. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be reading what they want us to know, huh? Has nothing to do with the language. It's the region you're. Doesn't matter what if you speak English, even though you're Palestinian, you're still Palestinian. It's so stupid. You guys know that our school curricula and books come from an Israeli company, but Durish schools refuse to allow it. I don't know who the Druish, oh yeah, the Druze. So the Druze. So that's something that, again, doesn't get talked about enough. So earlier in 2024, this story starts flooding the internet about the 12 children of Israel that were killed. And I remember hearing it and thinking, what? 12 Israeli kids were killed? How did that happen? You know, this is the Iron Dome, right? Nothing gets through the Iron Dome. And if something does get through the Iron Dome, it's because it's allowed to. But you hear about that there was this story that there was 12 kids playing soccer in a field, and a random ordinance got through and killed them. The 12 children of Israel, they were running with that narrative, the 12 children of Israel. Now, if you know, the 12 tribes and all that, like, they were really playing off of that. The issue is, it was actually a Druze neighborhood, and the Druze they're not Israeli, or they're not Jewish, they're not Christian. They happen to live in Palestine, the region that is now called Israel, but they were their own little separate community in the area. And when the Druze started coming out and saying, hey, quit saying that. They weren't 12 children of Israel. They were our children. The 12 Druze children were killed. The story just disappeared. You never heard about it again. Not saying Druze. I mean Jewish, but I don't need to finger point all the time. Sorry. Finger pointing at me all the time. Okay, well, there is a group called the Druze. So you were leading a maybe accidentally, maybe you didn't know, but you know, you can just refer to them as the chosen. You can refer to them as the bad guys. I like referring to them as the bad guys. That seems like it's a lot easier. The area of Mesopotamia, Sumeria, yep. I mean, just dumb. I don't even bother with this nonsense because it's stupidity. Yes, Druze are an interesting rabbit hole too. Yeah, go with bad guys, please. That works out really easily. But yes, like you were saying, people don't understand the curriculum that that the schools have. People don't get that the school books are written like there's a fight for the contract, right? People want the contract, but at the same time, you know, it's limited in that you have to be a writer who's willing to write the narrative that they want written. You're not allowed to embellish. You're not allowed to you know, put any details that they don't want in, but you still have to be able to make a decent history book, which is why they use the same history. Like when I was a kid, we had that tan history book. It said history in red letters, had a roller skate on it and shit. You can see it in Saved by the Bell. They actually have that book. We had that same book forever. You would get copies that were, you know, 5-10 years old and shit. Because that was, you know, it was just easier that way. And to be able to come up with new history books like that is difficult. But the history books are written by the company that's willing to do the most amount of work for the least amount of money and with zero creative input. It's called indoctrination. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is how it works. And it's the same thing, like they're training you from being a child. You know, you better do what you're told, which is regurgitate the narrative so you can get your paycheck, which is your report card, your grades. And if you don't get good grades, your good report card, good paycheck, then you lose your shit. Your parents ground you or whatever it may be. They're just enforcing the mentality from the young age, the indoctrination, to get you to do the work you're supposed to do and shut up about it. This is a guy who wants to sound smart but denies everything. Yeah. So sounding smart, like see, you're literally proving my point here. You think sounding smart is being able to regurgitate a narrative that's given to you. Not to ask questions about it, not to deny things, to call things out that just don't make common sense. No, that's not good. You're supposed to be able to regurgitate it for what it is. And the thing is, I can regurgitate a lot of it. I just think it's bullshit. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And when you look at how the system works and you know, like the goal and all that, it all just fits. It all fits. Why would they tell us the truth about things? Why would they want us to know how amazing we potentially are? You believe what you tell yourself, bro. Okay. People who sound smart are well trained. Yeah, to a degree. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of them aren't. They're just good at regurgitating certain aspects of things. But the thing is, if they have you regurgitating dumb shit, that makes you dumb. No matter how good you are at regurgitating, You know, you could be somebody that's given a puzzle and you can put the puzzle together in 10 minutes. You can be really smart along those lines. But if you're regurgitating dumb shit, like all the Bible stuff, all the earth-shaped stuff, all of that, you're regurgitating stupidity. So it makes you stupid without you realizing it. Oh, growing nowadays is so strong that it triggers your schizophrenia, blah, blah. Yep, we're going with schizophrenia again. I can't argue what you're saying, so I'm going to use a baseless term that doesn't actually fit here, but I'm too stupid to know anything else. You know? I mean, this is how this works time and time again. And it's the exact same stupid, right? The exact same stupid. All these random people from all over the world happen to say the exact same stupid nonsense, the exact same stupid way, get the same stupid spelling mistakes and all that shit, right? But it's not a Team Jorge bot system, avatar system. You know, it's real people mad because I think we should kill pedos and eliminate the J control scheme. So they're here to make sure that, you know, that I know that they're mad about it. Like, it's such a weird, obvious example. And it shows you just how stupid these J's are, right? They're really dumb, right? They really are dumb in the way that they do things. They're inbred, stupid people, so you can't really expect too much from them. All right. A disorder that affects a person's ability to think, feel, and behave clearly. The exact cause of schizophrenia isn't known. The symptoms requires medical diagnosis. Schizophrenia is characterized by thoughts or experiences that seem out of touch with reality, disorganized speech or behavior, and decreased participation in daily activities. Difficult to concentrate, and memory may also be present. Behavioral, social isolation, disorganized behavior, aggression, agitation, compulsive behavior, excitability, hostility, repetitive movement, self-harm, or lack of restraint. Yeah, that sounds like me. That's definitely me. Because I read stuff, I know stuff, and then I go live talking about it. That sounds like me fucking isolating myself and aggressively attacking and all. Like, it's just stupid. Cognitive, thought disorder, delusion, amnesia, belief that an ordinary event has special and personal meaning, belief that thoughts aren't one's own, disorientation, mental confusion, slowness in activity, or false belief of superiority. Mood, anger, anxiety, apathy, feeling detached from self, general discontent, loss of interest or pleasure in activities, elevated mood, or inappropriate emotional response. Psychological hallucinations, paranoia, hearing voices, depression, fear, persecutory delusions, or religious delusion. Speech, circumstantial speech, incoherent speech, rapid and frenzied speaking, or speech disorder. Also common, fatigue, impaired motor coordination, lack of emotional response or memory. That absolutely sounds like the guy who is reading shit from the internet and talking about it, you know, explaining things and looking at things. Yep, it's me. I'm crazy. And at the end of the day, to think like, let's just say I'm a schizophrenic, right? That you get off on finding a schizophrenic's page and then making fun and talking shit and trying to agitate and all that. A schizophrenic, like that's who you are as a person? When I'm not here, do you look for, are you the type that like shares the videos of the kids with Down syndrome and shit? And you're like, look at how hilarious this is. Is that who you are? You look for mental illness and then try to make fun and agitate. Like that sounds like you're a real winner. I should be more like you. What was that? Oh, yeah? Yeah, the voices that I'm hearing say the same thing. Because I'm hearing voices. Got that fractured personality going on. This is the best you guys can do, right? Seems strange, right? It seems so, and you know, the guy that thinks we should kill pedophiles and stop the genocide that's taking place, along with, you know, creating freedom for the rest of us, removing the slave masters that dictate our entire lives. Boy, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? Like, look at how just dumb this shit is. You know? I mean, there are the occasional people that try to address things, but then when you don't agree with what they say, they get mad. No, you need to believe what I'm saying. I'm right. I know I'm right because I regurgitated it like I'm supposed to. Never mind whether it makes sense or not. And then the same idea that a lot of the information that you're regurgitating comes from Wikipedia, comes from these sources that they give us. But you're not going to believe when Wikipedia says that Team Jorge exists. You're not going to believe Wikipedia's take on APAC or the ADL. Good Lord, mate, are you reading off a chat GPT script? Yeah, clearly I am. Clearly I am. Oh, look. Remember how I said it would come from right there? Didn't see it get laid, but there it is. Right through the crux of the tree. Huh. Me and my chat GPT script. Look at all of this, like, you know, pointing out of chinks in the armor, pointing out of holes in the narrative. And every time I do, people are like, hey, your shoe's untied. Hey, your shirt's not buttoned up right. Yeah, but what do you think about the whole pedophilia thing and the ritual aspect and the Matitza Bepe and the you know, just the genocide and all that. So what do you think about that? I don't like your haircut. What? No, let's not talk about me personally. What do you think about the system, the narrative you're given? Oh, okay, yeah. I don't like the shirt you have on. And this just keeps going this way. And you have to ask yourself, who is going to be motivated to do that? To sit here and spend hours making themselves look stupid. Because it's not like they're making me look dumb. It's not like they're addressing what I'm saying and proving that no, Israel doesn't control things. These do. No, there's not a genocide happening right now. This is what's happening. What's up, Dookie? What are you doing up so early?
It's 10.
It's 10. Wow, everybody's sleeping in late today, huh?
Yeah.
What's up, man?
I want to check something.
You check where? What?
Pretty sure Mom drove off with the firecracker.
Huh?
Do we still have firecrackers?
We still have everything, yes. So, I have gotten off the point here. I wanted to look this up. Defamation League. We looked a lot of this up the other day, and it's like there's so much to the history of this that you end up getting, you know, you can only do so much in one video. And so you have to do these separate videos because it's just so much information. And yet at the same time, it makes things difficult because now if you want to know the previous stuff, you have to go back. You have to go back and watch a previous video to hear the beginning parts, the ADL introduction, and now we're on the history, the origins, and the 20s and through the 60s, and now we're on the 70s and the 80s, right? Did I read this? Oh yeah. Nope, I did read the 80s. So now we're at the 90s, right? The ADL released a 1991 report observing an increase in the use of public access television stations by extremist groups. Like, it's just such nonsense. Just that statement in itself is such nonsense. Who do you think controls PBS? The thing is, when it comes to a big portion of this, like we all know, if you ask your grandparents who controls the money, if you ask your grandparents who controls the media, if they're being honest with you, if they respect you enough to be honest with you, everybody knows it's them. Everybody knows the Jays control the media. That's what Hollywoodism is, and I highly suggest you guys watch this movie called Hollywoodism. No one's watching PBS, guys. This isn't too right, because I'm the one that suggested PBS. It's not here. Like, this is how stupid you are. You honestly heard me read it, and then thought, I'm gonna get him. No one wants his PBS. This is in 2010. Enter. You thought that was gonna be a good thing to say. Like, who is that dumb? Who is that dumb? If you're that dumb, you're probably dumb enough to think that anybody could just get anything they want on TV. That there's not a lot of chosen red tape for you to get through. Why do you think you don't see anything regarding anti-ADL, anti-APAC, anti-J, anything? When was the last time you saw a movie where the main bad guy was Israeli or Jewish, outwardly? Obviously, they play the roles. But when was the last time you saw a movie that made Israel the bad guy or a Jew the bad guy? Please tell me whichever, I'd love to see that movie. I mean, you've seen countless movies where, the Arab's the bad guy, or a Russian bad guy, or, whatever it may be. But, like, where would North Koreans, you guys know that that movie Olympus Has Fallen, right? It's a movie about how don't knock that over. How it's Russell Crowe and Morgan Freeman, and it's the North Koreans attack the White House. It's interesting to think nobody's ever actually done anything like this, because the movie makes it seem like it would be pretty successful. And if you believe the narrative we're told, like, it's a very viable plot. They outfit a plane that has guns all over the bottom of it, and they fly around Washington, D.C. just shooting at random people, which draws all the attention to the plane, while these fortified dump trucks crash through the White House gates. Bunch of guys jump out with machine guns, take out everybody, all the Secret Service, who aren't even prepared for it because they're looking at something else. And they run in and they take the president. It just seems like a really viable plan. It doesn't seem really far-fetched at all. Rich Franklin's here. Remember the USS Liberty. If weren't Israel that did that, they would have made a movie about it a dozen times by now. Exactly. Wouldn't that be cool if that was the real Rich Franklin? You're the guy, Rich. I'll call you Ace. Even though you're really not Rich Franklin, but still. But yes, the USS Liberty is just, it's one of these like conspiracy theory stories that just, that everyone sort of knows. Anybody that knows anything about Israel being the bad guy knows about the USS Liberty and how they knowingly attacked a U.S. ship for hours while the U.S. ship is flying the flag and begging for help and all this. And then afterward, they're not held accountable. It's all just covered up and put away. And in the hundreds of soldiers that were either killed or injured, they're just fucked. It's just like, who gives a shit, right? The USS Liberty is something everybody should look into. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll look up the USS Liberty tomorrow. But it's just such a small little piece, right? And yet it says everything you need to know. And like you said, there would be so many movies made about it if it was anybody but Israel that did it. But the Olympus Has Fallen, I think it's either released in 2010 or 2012, can't remember. But if you think like if the movie is released at the latest in 2012, that means it was filmed 2012, probably wasn't being filmed by the time in 2012. Probably more filmed in 2011 and 2010. And then you got to think, when did somebody write this? You know, when was the script all created and the narrative produced in the first place? And you have to understand, North Korea wasn't a bad guy at that point. They weren't like this big threat to us and all that. That all came after this movie. So they prepared us by showing us this narrative about, North Korea attacking and basically almost winning, like this close to winning. If it weren't for, good old American luck, they would have won. But it's setting the stage. When I was a kid, Russia was the big bad in the world, right? We'd have bomb drills in class where we'd sit under our desks with our head covered in case bombs were dropped from the USSR.
I have to take her off. That's why I'm dropping that shit off.
Why are you showing me this? Just oh, okay, whatever. I don't care where you go. Go do what you got to do, woman. Huh? Okay. It's like it's all just so obviously manipulated. Such an obvious show that we're being put on. I don't know what else you would call it. But it's just strange. And when I was a kid, Russia was the big bad, but you can find all sorts of episodes like Transformers where the bad guys are these Arabs who are Arabs and shit. They were programming our generation for the Arabs being the bad guys. And if you look at the 50s and 60s, and they were programming them that Russia was going to be the bad guys. You didn't see a whole bunch of movies where like the Vietnamese were the bad guys, or at the time where Vietnam. It's the same thing with the Hollywoodism. Understand that Jays ran Hollywood like 100% with an iron fist, and they controlled everything that came out. This is what Hollywoodism will tell you. During the whole World War II Hollywoodism narrative, They didn't make a single movie about it. No Hitler movies, no, oh, our poor people movies, blah, blah, blah. There were 2 movies made at the time, and they were made by Goyim. And then after everything was said and done, there was this relatively secret trip. Well, the trip wasn't a secret, but what the meeting where the studio heads in Hollywood, the J studio heads, all took a trip to Germany and met behind closed doors with high-ranking people to discuss the narrative. They hadn't quite figured out what narrative they were going to run with yet. That's why the movies weren't made about it. And then after the fact, you know, then they start making their movies and whatnot. But once they decide the narrative, then they go with it. And it's right there. I mean, if Jays ran Hollywood, which they did, why weren't they making movies about the Holocaust as it was happening? Trying to bring as much awareness to the loss of their people and all this other shit. Because they couldn't. They hadn't figured it out yet. North Korea has a big giant red button that makes everyone fart. This is the best thing you guys can come up with. I know it. All right, so back to this. The 1991, the ADL releases the report too. You have to think about this. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, they're releasing a report. Why would they even matter at all? They call themselves the Anti-Defamation League, but they don't care about black people being defamed. They don't care about white people. It's not about any of us. It's about them. It's a J supremacy organization. Just like AIPAC. AIPAC is the AIPAC policy conference that's held every year. They brag that the only other event where more government officials show up and attend is the State of the Union address, where I guess they all have to be there. But even when it comes to like voting on things or anything, less government officials show up for everything else than they do the AIPAC policy conference, which should just, like, what do you mean the AIPAC has a conference every year where they discuss the policies of the United States, how the United States is going to run. This is a foreign organization holding a policy conference that everyone is forced to attend. And in 2016, both Trump and Hillary were special guests who both spoke. Neither one of them trashed the other one. And they both just pledged their allegiance to Israel. This was, you know, this was election time, so they should have been there like, vote for me, I'm better than this one. They didn't do that. And it's like what, how much more of that do you need to see and hear before you realize, like, why aren't the America First Trumpanzees furious about everything that's happening in Israel? Why aren't the America First Trumpanzees demanding that AIPAC be dismantled? Why the fuck would Israel decide American policy for anything? Anything. And yet they don't, you know. I mean, look at the comments. Look at how many stupid people are crying because they don't know this stuff, so they have a job to do. They're supposed to disrupt, but they can't do that with any reasonable, you know, articulation. Aaron knows. If it's bad in Israel image, how bad it would be behind the closed palace walls of Saudi royal family. What? Imagine. You know, when it comes to the Saudi bullshit, it's like so many of you have been following the Israel stuff since the October 7th false flag, where no Israelis were killed or taken hostage. You haven't been following this for long enough to understand what's going on. And so, like most of you you've heard of the Abraham Accords, but you don't know what the Abraham Accords are. And the Abraham Accords were, and like you don't understand what memorandums of understanding are and all that shit. And of course you don't. You've never been told they even exist, let alone to look into it. I mean, you've been told about the Abraham Accords, but you've never been told about normalization deals, memorandums of understanding. You don't know about those things. And it's crazy because, like, I still don't know what a normalization deal actually is. There's no on-the-record explanation for what it is. All I know is that Trump's main legacy, at least as far as history is going to be written, or at least was going to be written up until recently, was the Abraham Accords. That's what the first presidency is mainly known for. Not COVID, not the lockdown that cost people all their fucking lives and their stores and their loved ones and all these other bullshit things that they pushed on us. Now, a lot of Trumpanzees think Biden did it. I've had more than one Trumpanzee argue with me that Biden was who locked us down. Fucking insane, right? But in the first presidency, while you were all distracted by Trump this, Trump that, he's negotiating what's called normalization deals. And these normalization deals are so Israel wants to be able to, I bring the same one up, but the World Cup was held in Qatar. And Qatar didn't have good relations with Israel. But the Israelis wanted to do World Cup. So a normalization deal was brokered by the United States between Israel and the Qatari government, the Qatari royal, I don't even know what their leadership is, but and it's basically that Israel wants to be able, its people to be able to travel to and from whatever country it is without any real visa restrictions or anything like that. And it's supposed to be something that opens the door back, both ways. Like how Israel was put into the visa waiver program September 30th, I think it was, of 2023, 7 or 8 days before the false flag. And there are specific requirements that need to be met for a country to be added to the visa waiver program here in the States. And Israel just didn't do it. They said they weren't going to do it, The one of the requirements is that whatever country the deal is with, or like with the United States, that American citizens have the same rights that the Israeli citizens have here. So they can travel here without visas. They're not going to be fucked with. They get treated with respect and all this other shit. Well, Palestinians traveling to Israel, and even Americans traveling to Israel, white Americans traveling, and black, there's no black, but traveling there, they weren't being treated fairly. They weren't, and especially the Palestinians, they weren't being treated as the equals they were supposed to be treated as. And because of that, they're supposed to be disqualified from being put into the visa waiver program. Well, our government just decided that they were going to put Israel into the visa waiver program on September 30th, and that they had until the following year, they had like 6 months or something, which it was 6 months to the day from when it happened. I think it was 6 months. But it worked out to either be, I think it was the end of Passover. It might have been the beginning of Passover the following year, but I think it was the end. So they had up until the end of Passover, which is their favorite time to spill blood. They love spilling blood during Passover. But they were like, they were put into the program with this promise that by 6 months from now, they'll have fixed the whole situation, and you know, it'll be justified that they were put into the visa waiver program. Well, that's sort of what these normalization deals are as well, that Israel can travel wherever they want to, however they want to, and they won't be fucked with. And one of the main elements of the normalization deals is that whatever country it is pledges that if I don't know, something crazy happens, like, I don't know, Israel starts committing genocide, that they won't interfere. That's sort of the main element of it, is that these countries pledge not to interfere if Israel starts committing genocide. Isn't that crazy? I mean, isn't that crazy that it just happens to work out that way? Sign all these deals, you know, a few years before you start committing genocide that specifically deal with you committing genocide. And so it's that Israel gets to travel, gets to do what it wants, and also gets the guarantee that there won't be any interference. And for doing so, the United States pays whatever they work out to be. And that's something that we continue to pay for every year. So when we talk about the $3.8 billion a year that's given to Israel, understand that that's just the cash payment that's given to them in the first month of the fiscal year. One lump sum cash payment. There are all sorts of grants. You know, whenever they say the Israelis bought $20 million worth of weapons from the United States, well, they didn't even have to give us back the money that we've given them. That $20 million worth of weapons is paid for by grants, right? There's an interesting way of saying infiltrated, subverted, then controlled, as they do to ask systems of power. This guy is full of hate. You better believe I'm full of hate. I absolutely proudly hate pedophiles, hate the genocide, and hate the slave masters. You're going to tell me I'm not allowed to do that? I shouldn't do. Don't you hate those pedophiles? Is that what you're saying? But just think about how stupid this is. One of the normalization deals included Bahrain, right? And Bahrain, I don't know the exact number, but let's say that we gave Bahrain 20 F-35 fighter jets so that they would play nice with Israel, right? That was part of the normalization deal. Now you start getting into something called a memorandum of understanding. And the memorandums of understanding are just below treaties as far as what they're considered, but because they're not considered treaties, they don't have to be on the books. We don't have to know about them. They're legally binding in a way, but again, we don't really, like, they keep it all from us. And one of the memorandums of understanding, the only two that I actually know of, and if you look it up, so if you look up memorandum of understanding, you won't find anything that has to do with Israel. For some reason, they don't talk about it. Yet two of the main memorandums of understanding are the one that's signed every 10 years, that signed in 2006, the last one signed in 2017, not really sure why, but by Obama, and the next one will be signed in 2027 or 2026, not quite sure actually. But these are the one. That memorandum of understanding is what gives Israel the $3.8 billion a year. Another memorandum of understanding says that Israel is to have the mightiest military in the region, a quantitative military advantage. That's what I need to look up. We'll look up quantitative military advantage. And that quantitative military advantage states that Israel is to have the mightiest military in the region. Let's see. Quantitative military advantage. Oh, qualitative military advantage. Okay, so I knew it was one of the two. Qualitative research. Israel, United States military relations. But it says that Israel is to have the mightiest military in the region, and we are responsible for it. And it's a arbitrary percentage or an arbitrary, idea of like they have this much superiority and it has to be maintained. So if we give Bahrain 20 F-35 fighter jets so they play nice with Israel, because we gave them those jets, we now have to have the qualitative military advantage. Or Israel has, so we have to give Israel 35 F-35 fighter jets to balance out the fact that we gave Bahrain these things. So I'm reading this. Let's read what this says. This says, Israel, United States military relations. Oh, look, it's yet another page that's completely locked. There is no editing this page. Military relations between Israel and the United States have been extremely close, reflecting shared security interests in the Middle East. Yep, that's what they always hide behind. Don't you want to feel safe, don't you? Your kids are in danger. Your lives, your parents are in danger. Don't you want to be safe? We have to work with Israel and funnel money into them and all these other things to keep you safe. If you honestly think you're in any sort of danger here in the States, you're just stupid. We're too far away from everything. Nobody can get to you. You are in no danger in the United States. And even the attacks that you can refer to, those are orchestrated. Those are Mossad attacks. Mossad did 9/11. It's very, very obvious. The dancing Israelis, that tells you everything you need to know. But anyway, Israel is designated as a major NATO ally by the United States government. Why? Tell me one story, one instance where where Israel has come to the defense of the United States, where they have been our ally in any situation, any way, shape, or form. Give me one example of Israel helping the United States. I'll wait. You won't find it. It's not that we are too far away, but who's going to wake up the sleeping giant? Well, I mean, if your people are being attacked and it's obvious that you're the next Saddam Hussein or you're the next Muammar Gaddafi or anybody that they're trying to take out, especially if nukes are real, why not fucking launch one? If you could get to us, you would. But nobody can. But at least you're arguing. But let's keep going. A major purchaser of U.S. military equipment, they're not. Israel is also involved in the joint development of military technology, and it regularly engages in joint military exercises with the United States and other forces. I mean, other than us doing their dirty work, again, I don't know what this is referring to. The relationship has deepened gradually over time, though, as Alan Doughty puts it, it was not a simple linear process of growing cooperation, but rather a series of tendentious bargaining situations with different strategic and political components in each. Until February of 2022, the United States had provided Israel with $150 billion non-inflation adjusted in bilateral assistance. That seems pretty low. In 1999, the U.S. government... so what brought me here, actually, before we go, is that the reason why Saudi Arabia didn't sign one of those normalization agreements in the Abraham Accords, according to them, was because of the treatment of the Palestinians. They didn't want to be involved. And actually, when Joe Biden took over the reins, and all you're going to argue about how the presidents differ and this and that. Me, it's much more important as to what they're allies on. And the one thing that they absolutely agreed on was all the Israel support. So the Abraham Accords were Trump's baby, but then Biden just picked up where he left off. And Biden, because Trump couldn't get Saudi Arabia signed up, Biden was then offering, again, this is if you believe the narrative, but Biden was offering the Saudi Arabians a civilian nuclear program, of which Trump is now doing the same thing, right? But we were going to give the Saudi Arabians a civilian nuclear program. The idea that the President of the United States is trying to broker a normalization deal between the two countries most guilty of war crimes, according to all reports, Israel and the Saudi Arabians. These are two of the worst countries in the world as far as war crimes go. The President of the United States is trying to broker shit between them? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And that the United States is going to pay for it. The tax dollars were going to pay for the Saudi Arabians to get a civilian nuclear program. And they said, no, we don't need shit from you guys. We're not going to do it. We don't like the way that you guys treat the Palestinians. There needs to be a better situation for the Palestinians before we agree to sign anything. And yet, since October 7th, you haven't seen any engagement, any protection of the Palestinians from the Saudi Arabians. I actually sort of fell for that. I actually thought that you know, because in, I don't know, April, May of 2023, I started telling people, if Israel doesn't orchestrate the false flag and then the genocide by December of 2023, I'll quit doing this, right? I won't do any more videos. I'll just quit. I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll quit. And I was telling you guys for months that it's coming. It's coming. Look at the pieces falling into place. Look at the pieces falling into place. And then when the visa waiver program thing happened, I was like, oh shit, this is the final piece. Now they have a situation where they can allow them to escape here. You know, I mean, there's so many pieces of it. It was really such a crazy, 2023 was crazy. If you were following the whole Israel conflict bullshit, 2023 was crazy. They bought 42,000 slaves from supervised laborers. From India, 38,000 earmarked for construction jobs. The other 4,000 were for elderly care because even they don't want to take care of their own old people. And it was like, well, those are the jobs the Palestinians are forced to do. So it's not like Israel has this so much work so that they have to bring in more people to account for all the work that they have. No, that's why you haven't heard of any disruption to Israeli life since October 7th, because they brought in all of these Indians. They bought Indians from Delhi to do the jobs that the Palestinians did. There was no transition, nothing. They just, they just moved the Indians in and all those Palestinians were out their fucking job. Like, it's just nuts. But the point being that Saudi Arabia wouldn't sign one of these deals because of the Palestinians, and yet they've done nothing to help. And I figured, like, they in order to facilitate the genocide, they were going to need to do the thing where they would do the Palestinian thing, and then Saudi Arabia would get involved, which would then justify the United States getting involved, and that would spark the whole thing. But they didn't need to. They just did what they wanted to do, and that's that. No, they're the worst. It's not about Israel. Israel is just the invisible house. The ever-expanding invisible house. It's the cult. The entire cult itself that is the problem. The Matitza B'Peh, mikvah, horrible, horrible cult. There's a newspaper, there's a website called Israel Hayom, Hayom. And they did this article called Bottom of Darkness. And it's a pretty long article, but You can find it really easily on here. Just look up Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness. And you'll see this article detailing how the sexual assault and ritualistic sexual assault is extremely prominent there amongst those people. From every region, every sect, everything, the same stories of ritualistic sexual abuse of children permeates. It's well known that this is what they do. And if they do that to their own loved ones, imagine what they do to the people they hate. Look, we have another profile created an hour ago, no subscribers. This has to be the 10th, 15th profile of theirs that I've blocked, and yet they still desperately keep coming back because I'm wrong? I'm wrong? How's that work? Anyway, in 1999, the U.S. government signed a memorandum of understanding. See, again, I'm wrong, but I just happen to know these terms. Through which it committed to providing Israel with at least $2.67 billion in military aid for the following 10 years. Now, see, again, depending on what you look up, they'll say it's in 2006. This is the first time I've heard 2009. But it's signed every 10 years. And actually, the last one that was signed where they got the $38 billion over 10 years, $3.8 billion a year, they were mad. They thought they should have gotten more. They think they should be getting closer to $100 billion over the 10 years, $10 billion a year from the United States. And I'd be willing to bet that Trump is going to, when Trump re-signs this memorandum of understanding in the next year or two, that Israel will get the $10 billion a year that they want, maybe more. Like, it's just fucking insane. It's so crazy. So Obama signed the first one, or the 2006 to 2016, 2009, whatever year we're talking about, this one was signed, the 2.67 billion a year. And Obama was doing that. The one that we're under now was initially signed by Obama, but under the Obama campaign, there were two, quote, concessions that Netanyahu had to agree to be able to get that $3.8 billion a year. So this one's the previous one. That the concession to ask for any more money until the 10 years was up, and that they had to use the money that we give them to buy weapons from us. So it doesn't look like we're just giving them weapons to the American people. It looks like they're buying weapons from us. That we gave them a bunch of money so they would buy weapons from us. It's just so stupid. I just can't even wrap my head around how anybody hears that and goes, yeah, that makes sense. But they by the time it was actually put in place, Trump had already been president, and it's either 2018 or 19. Again, there are conflicting reports, but by the time it was actually kicked off, the two concessions were removed, and also that these were used as they saw fit, and we just stopped. And you actually saw a little bit of an example of it a few years ago, where they were trying to say that the United States wanted to give Ukraine weapons, and so they went to the caches, the coffers in Israel to try to get those weapons, and there wasn't any. They'd all been used and taken. And it was a big deal. They actually talked about it for a minute. But they just eliminated the idea that they need to buy weapons from us with that money. So now it's just, we just give them money. There's no reason for it. We just give them money. All right. Committed to providing Israel with at least, and this, like, again, this is the base number. This is a one lump sum cash payment that we give them in the first month of the fiscal year every year. Nobody else gets that. Nobody else just gets cash given to them like that, lump sum. We spread it out throughout the year, but we also have really strict monitoring policies in place to make sure we know where the money's going and how it's being used. And not with Israel. We just give them the money and be like, all right, be good. 2.67 billion in military aid annually for the following 10 years. In 2009, the annual amount was raised to 3 billion. And in 2019, the amount was raised again, now standing at a minimum of $3.8 billion US that the US is committed to providing Israel each year. Right? Because I'm making all of this up. Now, this is on a page that can't be edited, but somehow I've tricked Wikipedia into writing this out for me so I can say it on my feed so I can lie. All right? In addition, the only foreign military installations on Israeli soil are U.S. bases, including an AN/TPY-2 early missile warning radar station on Mount Keren. Overview. Let's see what this has to say. Following the Second World War, the new post-war era witnessed an intensive involvement of the United States in the political and economic affairs in the Middle East, in contrast to the hands-off attitude characteristic of the power of the pre-war period. And you think about, like, nobody else do we give a shit like this. Why do we give a shit about the Middle East so much? Do you guys remember in 2018 or something when they allowed the Trump presidency to look really good by lowering the gas prices to almost $1 a gallon? Do you guys remember that? Of course, that only lasted for a short period of time. It's not like the Biden presidency came in and changed it. It had already gone up by the Biden presidency. But Trump flat out said that we had enough oil reserves to last at least 25 years. We didn't need to buy foreign oil from anyone. Yet the narrative we're now given is that somehow us selling our oil to foreign companies makes them more money, and then us buying oil from foreign countries is more benefit. I mean, it's just stupid. You know, when I was a kid, when I first started driving, gas was like 90 cents a gallon. And you'd hear it all the time that oil was $100 per barrel. And that was sort of like the standard, right? As long as oil was $100 per barrel, then everything would be okay. During that little stint with Trump, they were saying that oil was negative $30 a barrel. And I kept trying to find anywhere where I could get barrels of oil and get paid $30 a piece for taking them, but that deal wasn't available to me. But nowadays, oil isn't $100 a barrel, so why do we pay $3 a gallon? Whatever happened to Trump lowering the gas and food prices? You guys remember that whole shtick that he ran on? He's going to lower the gas and food prices. He's going to end all the wars with one phone call. You remember all that shit? All that dumb shit you Trump pansies were just kept continuously saying like it was going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, you just ignore it. Oh, well, he needs more time. He can manufacture war for Israel and all that, but he needs more time to be able to get the gas and food prices to go down. Biden did it. Biden and Kamala were sitting around the Oval Office like, well, what do you think we should charge for avocados? Well, they're currently 99 cents. Well, let's make them $1.99. Like, it's so stupid how dumb people are. But let's keep going. Under Truman, the United States had to face and define its policy in all three sectors that provided the root causes of American interest in the region: the Soviet threat, the birth of Israel, and petroleum. Again, why the fuck would we care about Israel at all? How many of you give a shit about Israel? the birth of Israel. Like it was just this empty land, and then, you know, the people just came out of it. It's disgusting. What's the birth of Israel? United Nations petition plan for Palestine. So the birth of Israel is in blue. So when you click on it, it takes you to the United Nations partition plan for Palestine. It's disgusting. The United Nations partition plan for Palestine was a proposal by the United Nations to partition mandatory Palestine at the end of the British Mandate. I mean, there's just so much said there. You know, World War I was about establishing the British control of Palestine, making it British Mandate Palestine, which clearly exists. But what they did was make the Palestinians completely reliant on the British. Don't worry, you don't need to have a military of your own. We'll protect you. Don't worry, you don't need to have a government of your own. We'll protect you. We got you. And for 30 years, they weakened the Palestinian people. So that when they decided to turn around, because they love to say that like the Israeli military came in and forced this change. But Israel didn't exist. So how could they have a military? Where was this military training? Where was this military based? Where did they keep all of their vehicles, and how did they have they didn't have a government. How did they have a military? Basically, all they did was turn the British around and have them execute the Palestinians and remove the Palestinians. But drafted by the UN Supreme Committee on Palestine, the UNSCOP, on September 3rd, 1947, the plan was adopted by the UN General Assembly on November 29th, 1947, as Resolution 181. The resolution recommended the creation of an independent but economically linked Arab and Jewish states and an extraterritorial special international regime for the city of Jerusalem and its surroundings. The partition plan, a 4-part document attached to the resolution, provided for the termination of the mandate, the gradual withdrawal of the British armed forces by no later than August 1st, 1948, and the delineation of boundaries between the two states and Jerusalem at least 2 months after the withdrawal, but no later than October 1st, 1948. It is May 15th, 1948 was the Nakba. The Arab state was to have a territory of, listen to this, 11,592 square kilometers. The people that lived there, the people whose land it was, were to be given 11,592 square kilometers, or 42.88% of the mandatory's territory. They were supposed to sign this deal that gave them 42% of their land. Can you just imagine that happening here? Some foreign group decides that they want control of the United States, and that the United States, the people of the United States have to be willing to give up 42% of their land, to be able to give up 57% of their land, so that we could have 42% of our land. Can you imagine how ridiculous that is? Can you imagine somebody coming to your house and being like, okay, so you can have most of the upstairs, right? One of the major rooms, bathroom, whatever it is, whatever you have, I don't know. Let's say you have a good house, decent house. We're going to take over the bottom half of your house, the kitchen, all that stuff. You get the upstairs. You get the upstairs. That's yours. Be happy with that, or you're the bad guy. And the Jewish state, a territory of 15,264 kilometers, or 56.47% of the, or 56.47%. The remaining 0.65%, or 176 square kilometers, comprising Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and the adjoining area, would become an international zone. The plan also called for an economic union between the proposed states and for the protection of religious and minority rights. The plan sought to address the conflicting objectives and claims of the two competing movements, Palestinian nationalism and Jewish nationalism, in the form of Zionism. Jewish organizations collaborated with UNSCOP during the deliberations, while Palestinian Arab leadership boycotted it. Because again, why would they participate in the stealing of their own land? Like, that's just insane. Good morning. Thank you. It's just so stupid. It just doesn't, it's not a believable narrative. The plan's detractors considered the proposal to be pro-Zionist, as it allocated most of the land to the Jewish state, despite Palestinian Arabs numbering twice the Jewish population. Think about this, right? They had double the people because it was their fucking land. And because of this supposed narrative that came out of Germany, thousands of miles away, they were going to be required to give up more than half of their land. It just doesn't, it sounds like I'm reading some sort of dumbass fairy tale. And the Palestinians are considered the bad guys for rejecting this bullshit. The plan was celebrated by most Jews in Palestine and reluctantly accepted by the Jewish Agency for Palestine with misgivings. Zionist leaders, in particular David Ben-Gurion, that's not his real name, viewed the acceptance of the plan as a tactical step and a stepping stone to future territorial expansion over all of Palestine. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. This is so well documented. And remember, this isn't necessarily true. This is the truth that they want you to know. This is the best spin that they can put on it. The Arab High Committee, the Arab League, and other Arab leaders and governments rejected the plan, as anyone would. As aside from Arab leaders forming a 2/3 majority, they owned most of the territory. Right. They owned the territory. So to just be like, okay, well, the Jews can have it. We just don't want any of this land anymore. Especially all the parts with the oil on them and shit. We just don't want it. They also indicated an unwillingness to accept any form of territorial division, which again, they shouldn't, arguing that it violated the principles of national self-determination in the UN Charter that granted people the right to decide their own destiny. They announced their intention to take all necessary measures to prevent the implementation of the resolution. The plan was not implemented, and a civil war broke out in Palestine, leading to the expulsion and flight of 85% of the Palestinians living in the area that became the state of Israel. So instead of giving up 40 or 56%, they lost 85%. And then this notion that they're not supposed to be fighting back or angry about it or anything, that's how you're told to think. How dare they fight back? How dare they not just be expelled and killed and all that stuff? What's wrong with them? They should have just given up and let these better than us, these superior people have their way, right? It's just fucking insane. That is the way they want you to know it worked out too. That's not like the absolute truth. It's actually a lot bloodier and a lot worse, but that's how they want you to know about it. Back to this diplomacy between the United States and American government, or and Israel government. During the first 20 years following Israel's independence, United States policy in the Middle East was driven by two major policy concerns: the prevention of an arms race in the Near East, and the prevention of the spread of Soviet influence. Wow, sounds like a bunch of propaganda, huh? If you're watching, like, share, and sub. We're being shut down. You know what? Let's reset. We'll reset. Try again. Pedophiles, you kill yourself.